2 by dt equals f2 of x1 and so on. And for an nth order system, it used to go all the way up to dxn by dt equals fn x1 and so on. Right? So this was the set of equations which used to come from the model, the process model. Then what did you used to do? You used to convert this to the form dx vector by dt equals a, the coefficient matrix, times the vector x again, where x is your dynamical. So x is your dynamical vector and a used to be your coefficient matrix, right? Now, once you could cast your model equations in the form of this matrix equation. So this is a matrix equation. What you used to do was you used to analyze the matrix. So in a state space domain analysis, your central quantity to be analyzed used to be the coefficient matrix. So what you used to do was you used to determine the null space for determining the equilibrium solutions. You used to determine the eigenvalues for your analysis of stability of the system, right? So having a look at the coefficient matrix would tell you everything about the dynamics of the system. As simple as that, right? So now the similar concept can be extended in case of the transform domain modeling. So in transform domain analysis, what do you do? Well, you do write the model equations, right? So you have a model equation which would be of the form dy by dt would be a function of y and then a variable where you call y as the output variable. This is the language that you use for transform domain modeling. So output variable, and you have u, which is the input variable, right? And then what do? You take Laplace transform. You take Laplace transform on both the sides, and what you do is you come up with what is called g of s, what is the transfer function of the system, and then you know that g of s is y bar of s divided by u bar of s. So therefore, when you want to know y of t, this is basically inverse Laplace transform of g of s u bar of s, right? So now the way you used to look at the coefficient matrix to determine the entire dynamics of the system, you can look at the transfer function in in transform domain modeling to know the dynamical features of the system, right? So you don't need to worry about hundreds of the things. All you need to do is just determine the transfer function of the system and then focus on the transfer function of the system. This is what we are going to learn in today's lecture. That if you know the transfer function, what exactly that happens. Okay, so let's see. So for the sake of visualization, let us take a system which is a simple liquid level system. And this is just a schematic, so don't worry about the exact details. Okay. So our favorite example in chemical engineering is always a liquid level system. So your dynamical variable is H. You have Q in, the volumetric flow rate of the input. You have Q out, which is the volumetric flow rate of the output. And your dynamical equation, if I'm not wrong, would be simply A, which is the cross-sectional area of the tank, times dH by dt will be equal to Q in minus Q out. Okay. In other words, dH by dt equals Q in by A minus Q out by A. Right. Now, if I have to do this analysis of change in liquid level in the tank, what I can do is I can imagine this equation to be of the form which is written here, which is of the form which is written here. Right. So what would be my output variable? If I cause any disturbance to my system, the liquid level in the tank is going to change. So my dynamical variable is H. So H is my dynamical variable, and since the effect of any of the disturbance on the system will be the effect on the height or liquid level in the tank, this is going to be your output variable. This is going to be your output variable. Now, how will the liquid level in the tank change? Well, you may change the input liquid level, input flow rate. So you say you have a pump and you change the the flow rate of the pump, and that will result in H. So you can have Q in as the input variable. You may as well have a valve at the outlet, and if you change the opening of the valve, it may so happen that the flow rate of at the outlet changes, and as a result again H changes. So depending upon what the exact arrangement, you have your output variable U as Q in or Q out or both as output as your input variables. Sorry, input variables. These are the input variables. Okay. And what is the order of the system? Order of the system is 1, because you have one governing equation, right? This is just one governing equation. Now imagine that I now have a liquid level system in which instead of one tank, I have two tanks. Okay, so I have first tank and I have the second tank, right? So the output, so the input for the first tank is Q in. So this is Q, let's call it as Q1. And then the output from the first tank acts as the input for the second tank, and this is Q2, and finally I have the output from the third tank as Q3. So the liquid level is H1, the liquid level is H2 in the second tank. So I can quickly write the balance equations as A1 dH1 by dt equals Q1 minus Q2 and A2 dH2 by dt equals Q2 minus Q3, right? Now I have two governing equations. The first equation which is given here and the second equation which is given here. So the order of the system is 2, right? The order of the system is 2 because I have two governing equations. Now at this point of time, I have not bothered about the dependence of H1 on H2, the dependence of H2 on H1 and so on. Okay, so that gives rise to the concept of the tanks in series which are interacting or non-interacting. At this point of time, I'm not bothered about it. All I say is that I have two governing equations and therefore I have the order of the system which is 2. Now what we need to do is we need to find out what would be the overall input of the system and overall output of the system, right? So my so suppose you are using this in a plant, using this setup in a plant. So the only thing which you should be bothered about is Q3 because this Q3 is going to somewhere, say to a distillation column, to an absorption column, somewhere it is going, and therefore your output variable is only Q3. So output variable is just Q3, right? And in this region you do not have pretty much say a control, and therefore you say that your real input variable, your real disturbance, because uh, this q1 this q1 comes from say some storage tank which is placed somewhere in your plant. So your input variable becomes input variable becomes q1, right? So you have one output variable which is Q3, you have one input variable which is Q1, and the order of the system is 2, right? Now let's see if I write the transfer function of equation 1. If I write the transfer, so equation 1, so equation 1 is a first order ODE. Right? So therefore, my general transfer function for equation 1, let me call it as G1, would be of the form K1 upon tau 1 S plus 1. My equation 2 is again a first order ODE, which means I can write G2 as K2 upon tau 2 S plus 1. Right? Now, what happens is that if I consider my output variable as Q3 and my input variable as Q1, how can I write the overall transfer function for the system? And for that, we make use of the block diagram. Okay, so I have here the input, which is U of S, because this is transform domain modeling. We are using the notations in the transformed domain, and you will have G of 1 of S, and the output to the first one acts as the input to the second one. So I may write here as Y1 of S, and this will become G2 of S, and Y2 is your ultimate output, right? Y2 will be your ultimate output. Now I can write G1 of S as Y. So let us put a bar here and a bar here. Y1 bar of S by U of S, and G2 of S would be equal to Y2 bar of S, S upon U bar of S. No, Y1 bar of S, right? But then what happens if I multiply these two, G1 of S, G2 of S is simply Y1 gets cancelled, Y2 bar of S upon U bar of S, right? So this means your over your final output and your first input. And this is your overall transfer function, which means if I denote my overall transfer function for an nth order system as G bar of S, then it is going to be simply pi from I equal to 1 to n G I of S. Right? Your overall transfer function would be a multiplication. Your overall transfer function would be a multiplication of your individual transfer function of the components which are placed in series in this manner. In this manner. Okay, so you have individual components which are in series and your overall transfer function becomes like this. So therefore, for a two tank system, your overall transfer function would be multiplication of individual transfer functions. So what were the individual transfer functions? K1 tau s plus K1 upon tau 1s plus 1, K2 upon tau 2s plus 1. So this will become K1 K2 upon tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s plus 1, right? And this is second order. So how did you use to define? So definition of order in state space domain, it was equal to the number of first order ODEs. Number of first order ODEs that are used to define or model the system. Now the definition of order in transform domain will be equal to the degree of polynomial of the denominator of the transfer function. Okay, so now what is the degree of the polynomial in the denominator of the transfer function? It is 2. You can see here. Okay, therefore the order of the system is 2. But then you see we have two cases. One case is two tanks in a series. The transfer function was G of S equals K1 K2 upon tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s plus 1. This is a second order system. And second example of second order system was what we took in the previous class, a spring mass system. Spring mass system. The transfer function was given as K tau squared S squared plus 2 zeta tau S plus 1. Right? This is second order. This is also second order. Now the question is that what is the difference between the dynamics of these two cases. Okay, so as I said that the way you looked at your matrix and decided how the dynamics would be, what can be possible and what possibilities can be discarded, you can look at the transfer function in transform domain modeling and state whether some possibilities exist or some of the possibilities may altogether be discarded. So what is the difference between the two cases of the second order transfer function where you can write the transfer function in a factorized form, a factorization of first order transfer functions, and second in which you cannot write as in this particular form. Before we can analyze the difference, let us first analyze the difference between first and second order system. So first order transfer function is g of s equals k tau s plus 1, and a second order transfer function. So let me write here as, okay, no, let's not do that. G of s equals k. We wrote k here, right? Yes, we did. K tau squared s squared plus 2 tau zeta s plus 1. And we now want to know the effect of or how the dynamics change when the system order changes, right? So this is time. This is your dimensionless, rather not, I should not say dimensionless, but shifted u and y. So if you subject your system to a unit or a step change, a unit step change, then what's going to happen for a first order system, you will always find that you will have the dynamics which looks like this. Let me make it a little more drastic so that we can see it properly. It looks like this. This is first order, always. And for second order, well, it may be like this. It may be like this, which means it is like first order, which is monotonous. So what is the quality of the red curve? The quality of the red curve is that it approaches the new value in a monotonous and asymptotic manner. Well, it may not be so monotonous in second order always, and you may as well find out that there are oscillations and the oscillations may die out depending upon the system parameters that you have. This is also second order. Okay, so we definitely know that when you have second order, so let me write for a second order dynamics, you can have monotonous behavior or you can have oscillatory behavior. Do we see this from our state space analysis? Yes, we do see from state space analysis. In case of state space domain analysis, when the eigenvalues are purely real numbers, you see monotonous behavior. When they are complex, purely imaginary, you see oscillatory behavior without change in the amplitude. When you have oscillatory, when you have imaginary complex eigenvalues which with real part as positive, you see oscillatory behavior which increase with in amplitude with time, and when the real part is less than 0, you see oscillatory behavior which dies out with time. So even in transform domain modeling you see something very similar. But now the question is, what is the comparison between these two? K1 K2 upon tau s plus 1 tau 1 s plus 1 tau 2 s plus 1 and K times tau squared s squared plus 2 zeta tau. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so this is not I think we should not confuse ourselves with the notation. It should be zeta. And what about here? Yeah, zeta tau and plus 1. Okay. Yeah, here it is correct. So what is the difference in the behavior? So let's see. How will you solve for this? You have y of s upon u of s. This is equal to k1, k2. I have clubbed it as single variable k upon tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s plus 1. Right? So therefore y of t would be the Laplace inverse of k s tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s plus 1. Right? This would be the Laplace inverse of this entire unit step input. Okay. Now, how would you determine the Laplace inverse? You will do a partial fraction and you will then invert the individual terms. Like we did not bother to spend time on determining the eigenvalues and eigenvectors and so on because the procedure was very standard and trivial. I'm not going to waste time here in determining this. What I will do is I will write the final expression because I have already worked that out for you at home. So this is going to be k times. I very sincerely hope that you know how it will come. If not, let me know. 1 minus tau 1 upon tau 1 minus tau 2 e to the power minus t upon tau 1 minus tau 2 by tau 1 tau 2 minus tau 1 e to the power minus t upon tau 2. Right? So this is going to be the dynamics of the system. Right? Now we will need to see how does this dynamics take place. So let's try to plot this. So I will write here as f of x equals, I will not bother about k, it's just a multiplying factor. So 1 minus tau 1. So I will write this as t1 upon t1 minus t2, t1 minus t2 times e to the power minus x by t1, okay, minus t2 divided by t2 minus t1 e to the power minus x by t2. Okay. Yes. Again, we said that for this particular analysis we would be bothered only about the positive part, and we know that the time constants have got to be positive. So let us make it from 0 to 1. Let's make it from 0 to 1. 0 to 1. And as I said that this is a second order system. So therefore what should happen? What should happen is that you should in principle get all these kinds of behaviors, monotonous as well as oscillatory. Let's see whether it happens or not. Let me animate, and you see for every possible combination of these parameters. So let me make it more. Let me make it 10 so that you can see larger changes. Okay, so for every possible combination, it does not matter what is the combination of tau 1 tau 2 you take, there is never any oscillation in your system. Okay, you never see any oscillation in your system. You always see that your system evolves in a monotonous manner. Okay, so let me zoom out. Let me zoom out, and you see here that the system always asymptotically would reach to unity value, which is your magnitude of the step function, and you never see any oscillations in your system. Okay, so first qualitative analysis of the transfer function, that second order transfer function obtained by multiplication of first order transfer functions never show oscillations. Okay, so now you see, if you have a system in which the system composition is such that it is made up of individual first order systems, so the overall order of the system will become 2. In fact, it can become 3, 5, 100, any nth order system which is composed of first order systems in series giving rise to an nth order system will never show any oscillation. That's a good news, right? Now, how would it compare? Now, this was so our first question was this, right? Now, the second question is, how does it compare against first order dynamics, right? And first order dynamics overall transfer function was g of s equals k tau s plus 1, and we know from our previous lecture that y of t is k 1 minus e to the power minus t upon tau, right? So let us plot this. Let's plot this here. So this is for the first order and this is for the second order. G of x equals 1 minus e to the power minus e to the power minus x upon t1, right? So t1 here is the, so let me animate this. The purple curve shows the dynamics of the first order system. The red curve shows the dynamics of second order system. Let me do every possibility. Okay, let's try to do everything. So now you have kind of sampled everything which can happen to the system, and you see never does it ever happen that the first order dynamics is slower than the second order dynamics. Depending upon the parameters, they can come very close. They can as well be equal to, they can as well become equal when T2 becomes 0. So your system is essentially a first order system, but a higher order system is always slower in response compared to the first order system, right? So learning from this, what we can do is, what we can draw a general response curve. So this is my y of t. This is my t. So if this is my step input, then what's going to happen? I can draw several curves. I can draw several curves. I mean every curve to be an asymptote. and so on. And if I draw this, then this must be first order. This must be greater than first order. So let us write it like this. O n1, O n2, O n3. So O n3 must be greater than order of n2, must be greater than order of n1, and it must be this. So this is how in general the system evolves. Okay, and then if you have higher order systems, your order of the system, your dynamics will be slower and slower and slower. Okay, so what we learn from this analysis is that you can look at the transfer function the way you used to look at the matrix. If the transfer function is composed of multiplication of individual first order transfer functions, then you are sure that you will not get an oscillatory behavior, rather you will get a monotonous behavior, but that monotonous behavior will always be slower or sluggish compared to the first order behavior. This is what we learn by analyzing the transfer function. Okay. Now you see here, we wrote this overall transfer function. So let's write the overall transfer function. So the overall transfer function was what? K1, K2 upon tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s s plus 1. So let me write here as k times tau 1 tau 2 s squared plus tau 1 plus tau 2 s plus 1. Right? And let us keep it as it is, k1 k2. Okay. And what kind of system did it correspond to? You have an input which is u of s. You gave the input and got the output as y1 bar of s, and then it was fed to y to get y2 bar of s. So this is g2s and this is g1s. Right? Now consider the tank which looks like this, where you have input Q1. The input goes to the second tank and you get the output. So this is Q2, this is Q3. Level 1, level 2. Right? So this means that the height in tank 1, okay, level of liquid in tank 1 is not affected by the level of liquid in tank 2, right? Doesn't matter how much amount of liquid is there in tank 2, H1 is not going to be affected. So we call these as non-interacting systems. They have their individual dynamics. There is a dynamics of the first tank, there is a dynamics of second tank, there is an overall dynamics, but the individual components which compose the system, they do not affect each other. But now imagine that you have a liquid level system which looks like this. H1 Q1, and now you add an input like this here, Q2, and you take Q3 out, H2. Now in the second configuration, there will be a backflow. There will be a backflow depending upon the differences in the heights of H1 and H2. I don't say, I should not say there will be a backflow. There can be a backflow depending upon the liquid levels H1 and H2. Therefore, these systems are interacting systems where the liquid level H1 is a function of liquid level H2. Right, the liquid level H1 is a function of liquid level H2. Now what happens in this case? What happens in this case? You see here, I can now write for such a system y1 as a function of y1, y2 and u. Okay, y1, the height of the liquid in tank 1 is not only a function of height of the liquid in tank 1, it is also a function of height of the liquid in tank 2. Whereas now I say y2 is another function of y1, y2. This will always happen, but there is nothing which is coming from directly from u to second tank. So therefore you are not writing this as a function of u. U disturbs only the first tank. Since first and second tank are connected, so in an indirect manner u affects the second tank. That's quite obvious. But when the model equation, as far as the model equation is concerned, u doesn't go directly in the model equation of the second one. So now I will write the model equation, a general model equation for this, and let's see how the model equation, the resulting transfer function drastically differs from the original transfer function. So I can write here A1, the general model equation, dy1 by dt equals, plus A2 y1 plus A3 y2 equals A4u, right? The height of the liquid in tank 1 is a function of height of the liquid in tank 1, height of the liquid in tank 2, and the input function, input variable. But in case of the second one, B1 dy2 by dt, dy2 by dt, the only input function that you have is, the only input or disturbance variable that you have is this one, right? So there won't be any u term. So therefore you can write here as B2 y2 minus B3 y1. I am doing this to be consistent with the notations, and this is equal to 0 because you can take this side and this will become your input variable. Y1 becomes your input variable. Right? So I hope you understand how these model equations come. If there is any doubt, please feel free to ask me. I will explain again why these model equations have been written in this manner. Okay, so now what I will do, I need to do Laplace transform. So before doing Laplace transform, what I will do is I will write this as y dy1 by dt a1 upon a2 plus y1 plus a3 by a2 y2 equals a4 by a2 u1, right? Similarly, b1 by b2 dy2 by dt plus y2 minus b3 by b2 y 1 equals 0. So now we have the functions which are in a proper uh, format to be put for Laplace transform. So from here you can write this as a1 upon a2 s plus 1 times y1 s, right, plus a3 upon a2 y2 bar s equals a4 by a2 u bar of s, right? And similarly you will write the next one, and then you will solve for you will solve for y1s bar upon u of s. This is what you will get from equation 1, but it has equation 2. It has y2 as well, and y2 will come from the second one, but second one will have y1. So you will have to solve this as this set of algebraic equations, right? So again, since these are all trivial mathematical steps, I have already done this for you. I'm writing the final expression. We would ideally like to analyze how these systems work. So y1 of s upon u of s is equal to, so long expression, let me write this, a4 b1 s plus, I encourage you to derive and make sure that you also get this, b2 a4 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 divided by, you will not get these derivations in any of the books, especially the books which I have prescribed. You will definitely not get. Of course, I don't challenge that I have read every single book in the world, but this is the derivation which I made. So therefore, you will in general not find this in the books. Please derive again at your home. These are simple mathematical steps, nothing great in that, but make sure that you know the steps. So the denominator would be a1 b1 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 s squared plus a1 b2 plus a2 b1 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 s plus 1. This is the transfer function for the first one. Okay, and you can as well write here y2 bar of s upon u of s bar. Everywhere should be a bar. This will be equal to a4 b3 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 upon a1 b1 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 s squared plus a1 b2 plus a2 b1 upon a2 b2 plus a3 b3 s plus 1, right? So again, let me repeat the procedure. At least one step, let me write here quickly so that you will be in a position to do it. This will be b1 b2 s plus 1 y bar of s 1 minus b3 by b2 y bar of, so this should be y2 y1 of s equal to 0. Now you need to solve for y1 y2 and so on. So you will get this expression. Okay. Now, when you get this expression, let us try to analyze what is there in this expression. Okay, what is there in this expression? When I look at these two expressions, both of them are second order dynamics, Cs squared, S squared. Okay, these are second order systems. So when you have two tanks, I don't see this transfer function as multiplication of individual first order transfer functions. That's not the case. It is a little more complex than that. But what I see is that in the denominator, I still see S squared. That means your overall dynamics is going to be a second order dynamics. Fine. What else do I see? What I see is that the dynamics, see, this is the overall dynamics. So this is the overall dynamics, which is second order. But what is this? This is output of the first tank by input to the first tank. So this, what does this give? This gives me the dynamics of the first tank. So dynamics of the first tank, right? See, what did we do here in the previous case? The first tank, so this was f of x is the overall dynamics. F of x is the overall dynamics. The overall dynamics is second order. The overall dynamics is second order. But the dynamics of the first tank was first order, right? So in this particular case, in the first case, in this case, overall second and first tank first order. In this case, overall is second order, but even first tank is second order, which means that now even the filling of or change in the level of first tank will be slower as compared to the first case. And why would that be? Well, physically it makes sense because now you have a system in which you have made such an arrangement. You have a system in which you have made such an arrangement that there is a possibility of backflow. So therefore, the system is not adjusting as quickly as it would have adjusted in case of a unidirectional flow. Right? So this is an observation which we get from the dynamics of this particular transfer function. And now, is it truly second order? Now that has to be seen here, that here you see here you have an S here, right? So the order of the denominator is 2, but the order of the numerator is 1, right? So you have now a transfer function of the form g of s, where you have s in the numerator as well. So psi s plus 1, and now you have denominator, and we can, let's say I can factorize. Okay, let's not as simple first order to, but it's in principle possible for me to factorize this as tau 1s plus 1 and tau 2s plus 1, right? So now what would be the what would be the order of the system? The order of the system is called 2 1. It's not second order, it's not first order, it's not 2 minus 1, which is 1. It is 2 1. So let me correct this. So the dynamics of the second tank is 2 1 order dynamics. And remember, it's not 1-2 order dynamics, it is 2-1 order dynamics. 2 is what comes in the denominator and 1 is what comes in the numerator. Okay, so now when we do this, when we got an expression of this form, again what I will do is I will write y of t will be Laplace inverse of psi s plus 1 for a unit step function s tau 1s plus 1 tau 2s plus 1. Right? And as I said, I will not waste time in solving this entire this expression. Okay. What happens when you add a psi on the numerator? So I'm writing the final expression directly. Y of t is equal to 1 minus tau 1 minus psi upon tau 1 minus tau 2 e to the power minus t by tau 1. I'm writing a lot of expressions directly because I personally feel they are trivial to be solved by pen and paper. In case anybody has any doubt or doesn't know the procedure or has forgotten the procedure, please write an email or send a message on Teams. I will give the details, or at least I will tell how to do it. Minus tau 2 minus psi upon tau 2 minus tau 1 e to the power minus t upon tau 2. Okay, so this is the overall dynamics when you have a quantity with s on the numerator, right? And how does this differ from the previous one when there was no psi in the numerator? Well, it's exactly the same expression except that now here you have minus psi, here you have minus psi, right? So we can now analyze this dynamics. Let's go back and see how this dynamics works. So let me copy paste. I hope I can copy paste this. Control C, Control V, and let me make it as h of x. And this was minus psi minus psi. Okay. You see now from 0 to 10, and let me try to do this. Yes. Okay. Now you see what's going on. What's going on is, so what are the two colors that we need to compare? We need to compare the red one with the with this one. So let me put it and let me start animating this. Okay. Okay. So now let me make this a little more sharper and see a little more down. Okay. So now what happens? What's going on is that any quantity in the numerator is pushing the dynamics to become faster. Okay, and the magnitude of psi here, is the quantity which is directly responsible for making it go more up. Okay, more up to an extent that it can in fact go beyond the stipulated step function. You see here, the step function was only unity, but now it has gone above unity. However, ultimately it would settle down ultimately it would settle down to the unity, right? So now it is the moment you have a quantity on the numerator, it is like being enthusiastic in the response. So what you're basically doing is you are making the response faster, but to what extent? It is at times becoming over enthusiastic that it is shooting beyond what is the stipulated response. It is going beyond the unit step response as well. But then it realizes that, okay, I have gone beyond what was called for. So therefore, let me come down. So let us quickly look into it. As you add the worst that you can do, the worst that you can do is just become equal to the second order response. But the moment I add something in the numerator, it goes up, and not only does it go up, it can as well overshoot. So let me draw the response. Let me draw the response here. So this is the response. This is the step function. This is the step function, and the response would look something like this, that if you do not have any psi, again everything is an asymptote, okay? So psi equal to 0, which means pure second order. And then the moment you start adding, it goes up, it goes up. In fact, it can as well go up and then it comes down and so on. Right? So psi 1, psi 2, psi 3, psi 4, psi 4 greater than psi 3 greater than psi 2 greater than psi 1. Psi. Okay. So this is the response, and therefore now we call this to have a 0, and we call these to be poles. So you look at a transfer function. Again, as I said, I've been emphasizing you should look at the transfer function. So I look at the transfer function, and what I will see is that, okay, if I do not have any zeros in my system, it is going to be a nth order system, and therefore the dynamics will be sluggish compared to the first order dynamics. Now, if you want to make it more, you need to add more and more zeros and higher magnitudes of the zeros, and then what's magnitudes of the coefficients of S, and you will get a response which is enthusiastic. Sometimes it can as well become over enthusiastic, so you may overshoot the desired step function. Okay, so this was the effect of zeros and poles in your system. We'll take a small break, and currently it is 7 minutes past 12. We will start at 15 minutes past 12, and in the meantime, if you have any doubts or questions, please feel free to ask.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, for the derivation of that term where we get 2e to the power minus tau 1 tau 2 terms,
Yes.
sir, we are basically taking partial fraction here,
Mhm.
and they making two terms having one tau s plus 1, and then uh, doing the inverse
Yes.
Laplace, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, somehow I missed the dynamic equations part where we have written that A1 into dy1 by dt. Can you
Which one?
explain that?
Which one?
Like dynamic equations we have written also for that two tanks.
This one.
Yeah.
Huh.
Can you explain how we have written the equations? I have
Okay.
missed out
How,
there.
how, how did we write the equation? Okay. So in general, if you have u as the input and y as the output, so how do you write the equation? You write the equation as a1 dy by dt plus a0y equals b times u, right? This is the general first order equation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now what has happened is that you have a situation like this, u. Okay. So this is y1, this is y2, y2, and you have a situation like this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So based upon this, you will write these equations in the exact same manner.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, one small doubt.
Huh.
These are systems we are comparing. These are like not inherently second order, right? I mean, inherently second order, like the spring system and
Yes.
mercury and thermometer. So
Yes.
here in interacting system,
Hmm.
so when the psi coming, right?
Hmm.
So there also we saw the overshoot. In that. When we see in inherently second order system, there also we see the effect of zeta, the zeta. So
Yes.
like how we compare this in this Ivala system and that inherently second order system.
Yes. See here, what you see here is that even if it overshoots in your response, okay, so it goes up, but it realizes that it has gone up and it comes down. Okay. But what happens in an oscillatory behavior? It will go up, it will try to adjust, it will realize that okay, I have now gone down, it will again go up, it will again come down, and it will oscillate, and eventually it will settle down to these two values. Okay, so now the question is, what is the difference in the behavior when you have a purely or a truly second order system versus a second order system with a zero? So in case of a second order system with a zero, you do not see oscillatory behavior. Now the behavior is not monotonous, agreed, but it settles down without oscillations. In a truly second order system, there is a danger of oscillations in your system. This is the main difference between the two behaviors.
Okay, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Now, in all the cases where we saw these transfer function, these all were the cases where you had a single input. So these were single input systems. Okay. Now, what if you have multiple inputs? Multiple inputs. What happens? Okay. So let's try to write down an expression for a system in which there can be single inputs, there can be multiple inputs as well as multiple outputs. Okay. So let us try to make it much more generalized. So our conservation equations can be assumed to be in this form, that you have dx1 by dt equals a11 x1 plus a12 x2 up to a1n xn. Right? Again, these are all of very similar form like we wrote here. Right? So now we are extending it to n dimensions. So it would be this plus the contribution from the input variables. So this is like b11 u1 plus b12 u2 up to, there can be m number of input variables. There is no reason for it to be the same as n. So it will be b1m um. Right? So you can write this for all of the n dynamical variables. So it will be dxn by dt, and this will be equal to a1n x1 plus a2n x2 up to ann xn plus b n1 u1 plus b n2 u2 up to b nm un it should be um. Okay, so these are the governing equations for the dynamical variables, and you can have corresponding equations for the output variables. Let's say the corresponding equations for the output variables look something like this: y1 equal to c11 x1 plus c12 x2 up to c1n xn plus d11 u1 plus d12 u2 up to d1m and for p number of output variables. Okay, so you have p number of output variables in your system. So you have multiple output system, multiple input, multiple output. So you have c p1 x1 plus c p2 x2 up to c p n xn plus d p1 u1 plus d p2 u2 up to plus d p m u m. Okay, I hope you understand that. Like, say you have a single tank system. So in this case you had one input which is q in, you have one output which is q out, whether your dynamical variable was h. Okay, now in this case you have n number of, oh, where did it go? You have n number of dynamical variables. You have, so let me write down, you have n dynamical variables, m input variables, and p output variables. There is no reason for any of these to be specifically equal. There is no reason, right? So now, as I always do, since these are simultaneous equations, I will convert them to matrix equation, right? So let's say I write these equations as dx by dt, and this will become equal to coefficient matrix A times the dynamical variable, plus you have again the coefficient matrix, say B times vector u. Coefficient matrix B times the vector u. Let's be consistent with the notation and make it capital U. And similarly, I can write the vector y, and this will be equal to the coefficient matrix C times the vector x plus the coefficient matrix D times the vector u. Right? Fine. Then what should I do? What, or if I remember what I did for the previous case, what I did for the previous case was I took the Laplace transform. So now I will write it in this form, that x s of x1 bar equal to a11 x1 bar plus a12 x2 bar up to a1n xn bar plus b11 u1 bar plus b22 u2 bar up to, not 22, 12 b1m um bar, right? I will write this for all of them. So I will write at least this xn bar equal to a n1 x1 bar plus a12 a n2 n2 x2 bar plus s no, not s, a n n x n bar plus bn1 u1 bar plus bn2 u2 bar up to plus b n m u m bar, right? from here to there, Laplace transform on both the sides. Similarly, what I will do is I will write this y1 bar equal to c11 x1 bar plus c12 x2 bar up to c1n x1 bar plus d11 u1 bar plus d12 u2 bar up to plus d1m um bar up to y p bar equal c1 what should be, it should be p1 x1 bar plus cp2 x2 bar up to cpn xn bar plus dp1 u1 bar up to dpm um bar, right? So now you have n plus p equations, right? You have n plus p equations which have to be solved simultaneously. This somehow got messed up, but that's not a problem. Plus. So now what you need to do is you need to write them in the form of matrices. Okay. So I hope you will be able to see that the matrices would look like this. I have written down those matrices here in front of me. 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 0 1. Okay, minus a11 a12 a1n to an1 an2 ann, right? And this whole thing by the vector x1 bar x2 bar up to xn bar equals b11 b12 b1m bn1 bn2 bnm times u1 bar u2 bar up to um bar. Fine. So we have converted this into a matrix equation. We have converted this into a matrix equation which can be written here as S identity matrix. This is the identity matrix, right? So Si minus A matrix, Si minus A matrix equals B times the U matrix, right? B times the U matrix. In other words, I can simply write this as X bar matrix. Okay, this has to be multiplied by X bar, vector, not matrix. X bar. Okay, so X bar vector is Si matrix minus A matrix inverse times B matrix times U matrix, right? So this is the expression for your Laplace transform. So let me write here. Laplace transform of the dynamical variable. Okay, for a multiple input, multiple output system. This is the Laplace transfer for multiple input, multiple output system. Okay. Similarly, we will write y1 bar, y2 bar up to yp bar. What was that equal to? C11, C12, C1n, CP1, CP2 up to CPn, and this was multiplied by x1 bar, x2 bar, xn bar plus d11, d12, this entire matrix times u1 bar, u2 bar, um bar, right? From where I can write y bar of s, y bar of s equals coefficient matrix x bar. Did we put bar here? Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Plus d u bar, right? Du bar. This is not going to be a matrix, it's going to be a vector. This is going to be a vector. Okay. So now what we can write here as is y bar of s equals C matrix multiplied by x bar will come from here, Si matrix minus A matrix inverse B matrix U vector. So this is x plus d u bar. Okay, du bar. Now, what is the point of doing this? The point of doing this is very simple. Y bar s by u bar s. Okay, this will simply become C matrix Si matrix minus A inverse A matrix inverse B matrix plus D matrix. And what is this? What is this huge expression? Laplace transform of the output variable divided by Laplace transform of the input variable, right? Laplace transform of the output variable divided by Laplace transform of the input variable. So this is nothing but the transfer function. But this transfer function is what kind of transfer function? This is a transfer function matrix, right? So for a single input, single output system, one gets a transfer function. For a multiple input, multiple output system, one gets a transfer function matrix. Okay, one gets a transfer function matrix. Okay, so this is the expression for the transfer function matrix. Fine. Now the question is that once we have found out or we have analyzed a system in transfer function domain, we could also have done this analysis in state space domain, can we exchange them? In other words, can we obtain transfer function domain analysis from state space domain analysis, or can we obtain a state space domain analysis from transform domain analysis? Okay, let's try to look into it. So interconversion of interconversion of state space and transform domain models, right? So let's say we have a state space domain model. What would be the most general state space domain model for a first order system? Dx by dt plus equals ax plus bu. Let's say we have this as the expression. So we generally write it as dx by dt minus ax is equal to bu. So here minus ax has been converted to the other plus ax is equal to bu. So minus sign has been taken away. The magnitude of a can be negative, and this will be accompanied by the expression for an output variable. This is cx plus du, right? Well, this is same as this set of equations which we wrote here. Yeah, see this set of equations which we wrote here, just single equation will give you that equation in the first order for a first order system. Okay, so now how will you convert this state space domain model? So this is a state space domain model. How will you convert it to a transform domain model? Okay, let me do it. So I will have the Laplace transform of the first one, that is s x bar of s equals a x bar of s plus b u bar. From the second expression you get no, or from here itself this will be x bar of s equals, what will it become? B upon a minus 1, no, s minus a, sorry, s minus a times u bar of s, right? This is what you get from the first expression. From the second expression, what I get is y bar of s equals c x bar of s plus d u bar of s, right? So I can write here very simply y bar of s equals c into b upon s minus a plus d u bar of s, right? So I can finally obtain the transform domain model, which means I need to have a transfer function, which is simply y bar of s divided by u bar of s. This will be equal to ds minus ad plus cb upon s minus a, right? This is the transform domain model. And when I analyze this transform domain model, I do a very small but very interesting thing, and that would be that I obtain a diagram which looks like this, where you have y bar of s here, you have u bar of s here, and you have g of s here. right? So we call this as block diagram. Block diagram, right? Now let's see if we can obtain, let's see if we can convert this transform domain model as well as the block diagram. We can convert the transform domain model as well as the block diagram to a state space domain model. Okay, so what was our final expression? Y bar of S by U bar of S, right? So this was ds plus CB minus AD, right, upon S minus A, which means this can be written as, now look at the steps carefully. What I do is this S Y bar of S, and I'm sure you understand why this particular thing is being done, minus A times Y bar of S, right? And this will be equal to S times rather D times S U bar of S, right, plus CB minus AD, CB minus AD times U bar of S, right? So I arranged it in a little trickier manner to get this. Now you see here SY bar of S, this must come from dy by dt. This must come from dy by dt, fine, minus A y. This is very simple. This should be equal to d du by dt. Please do not confuse these two d's. Okay. Let me write here as this, plus CB minus AD times U. Okay, and this is your state space domain model, right? Where you have everything in terms of input and output. Okay, so we have converted every input to an output in terms of an output. Sorry, we have converted all the outputs in terms of inputs. Okay, inputs in terms of their derivatives and so on. So in general, we have removed the dynamical variable and we have just got an input output model. So the Laplace transform model was an input output model. This is the input. Okay. Please, this was a mistake. Please correct it. This must be Y bar of S. So this was the input. This was the output. Right? This is the correct version, not the previous one. And now you have this everything here as input and this everything here as output. Again, the input output model. The only thing which is left is now obtaining a block diagram, a corresponding block diagram. Okay, so a corresponding block diagram should have an input, should have an output, but instead of the transfer function in terms of the Laplace transform, it should reflect these operations. It should reflect these operations. Okay, so let's see.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, whenever we convert from state space domain to transfer domain,
Huh.
we always assume that the initial conditions are zero. That means
Yes,
initial
yes,
conditions are homogeneous. So
yes.
what if they are not zero? Like we then we'll not be able to separate. Like we'll not be able to write it in this form y bar s by u bar s
Yes,
because
yes. In fact, whenever we are doing any analysis in transform domain, it is assumed that you are dealing with the system which is in the deviation variable form. So everywhere when I write y, it's always the deviation variable, and the deviation variable is always accompanied by homogeneous boundary conditions. So when you introduce a disturbance, at that point of time, the deviation variable is obviously zero by definition. So all of this analysis holds true only for deviation variable form.
Sir, yes. If even if we write it in terms of deviation variable form, so yeah, if I have a first order equation,
Hmm.
so in that case, so I write dy by dt in terms of s y bar s minus y zero I get. So
Hmm.
in that case, I can understand that y zero will be zero if I replace that y by a dummy variable.
Hmm.
But if I have a second or third order equation, then I have s square y bar s or s cube y bar s into minus y double dash 0 minus y dash 0, these terms are also there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how will we
You
ensure that these terms are also 0? Because
no no
deviation variable won't ensure that.
no.
Only y0 will be 0 in that case.
Yes. And that's why what you do is you convert all of these second order equations to first order set of first order equations, and the initial condition for all these first order equations must be zero, homogeneous. So you do not have a way to directly deal with higher order systems. You always convert those higher order systems to first order systems. And the only way to do this analysis is that the boundary condition for these first order systems should be homogeneous. Then you can do it. Okay?
Okay.
Huh.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hmm. Now, so to write, to draw this first so input output block diagram, draw the input output block diagram in state space domain. Let's see what was our original equation. Our original equation was dx by dt equals ax plus, it was b, I think bu, yes, and y was cx plus du. Now we will make use of this equation. We will make use of this equation to develop an analogous input output equation block diagram. Okay, so the input output block diagram will have an input which will be u of t. Please look at this procedure very carefully because it is not as trivial as developing the block diagram for a Laplace transform domain block diagram. So, and here on as the output you will have y of t, right? So now when you go from, how do you obtain y? How do you obtain y from u? By multiplying it with d, right? Simple. So I can imagine that there is a path from here to here. I can imagine that there is a path from here to here, which is d, right? So u multiplied by d will give you y. This is the contribution which is coming from u. Remember, it is not complete. It is the contribution which is coming from u. Now, what is the contribution from x? The contribution which is coming from x is that there is some x somewhere, and then when you multiply this x with c, you get y, right? So the convention is that you add a adder here. So this is called an adder. So you add it, and this is what you get. So now everything from the second equation. So let me write this as the first equation and this is as the second equation. How do I get the input output block diagram from the second from this term? You have a first you have u of t. U of t when multiplied by d will give you y. So there is a branch which goes from the top like this. But what is the contribution from x? There is some variable x, right? And that variable when multiplied by c will give you y. So there is an adder here, that's fine. But now you will see that this x appears here as well, right? This x appears here as well. Okay, so now there is a derivative. Okay, there is a derivative. So the problem with this particular section is that there is a derivative here. Okay, so you use something called an integrator. Okay, so you have an integrator, and the symbol for an integrator is S bar. Okay, I'm not sure the instrumentation students might have learned this, but this is something which the chemical engineering students must be learning absolutely for the first time. So make very sure that you know this, you understand this. So this is an integrator. Okay, so what will be the
Sir.
input? Yes.
Sir, it is 1 by s, right? S bar.
Why? No,
For
this is the general. This is the general symbol for an integrator.
Okay, sir. I have once seen 1 by s written. That's
So it is this one S inverse. That's what.
Okay, sir.
S to the power minus 1. It is, yeah, you can write it as 1 by S. I have written as S inverse, but this is just a symbol which means that you are integrating. Now what are you must be integrating? You must be integrating x dot, right? The derivative, right? So now when you integrate x bar, you get x. So therefore now you have an x, right? And now what about this contribution? When you give b to x, b to u, you get dx by dt, right? When you give b to u, you get dx by dt. Therefore, you must be having a b here to give you dx by dt, right? Now, the only thing which is left is the contribution from A. What is the contribution from A? Now, the contribution from A is such that this the relationship between x and u, rather the relationship between these two, no, not this one. The relationship between A and X. The relationship between A and X is such that if you supply your dx by dt with A, with you supply your dx by dt with 1 over A, you will get X, right? So therefore, you have another adder here. You have another adder here, and you get here. So you add it, and what should be this contribution? This contribution should be A. Okay, and this completes your block diagram. We will go through this entire block diagram completely, but let's first try to understand how did we do it in a stepwise manner. dx by dt equals ax plus bu and y equals cx plus du, right? So the first part, we are making an input output model. So you have an input, this is the input, and this is the output. Now let us try to very carefully get different contributions. To get y, you have to multiply u by d. So therefore you get this path. You get this path. Okay, you simply multiply it by d. Fine. But that gives you only a part of y. The other part comes from x. So there is some variable x, which when multiplied by c will give you Why? So this is the second path, and this completes this entire expression, right? But we have not considered the first equation, and first equation basically is the origin of the definition of x. So since you have dx by dt, you multiply dx u by b, you get dx by dt. So to get x, you need to have an integrator. So you supply your integrator with dx by dt, you get x. So this portion makes sense. Fine. Now b of u, you multiply your u by b, you get dx by dt. This is what you get. And finally, you multiply a with x to get dx by dt, and therefore the direction of arrow is reverse. This is the complete block diagram. So let me write here. This is the input output block diagram for a state space model. Okay, input output block diagram for a state space model. Single input, single output. So we stop here. There has been a lot of yeah. If you have any doubt or any question, please feel free to ask. Yes.
Sir, the when you add the a, the position of adder, why won't be it? Um, I mean, the position of the adder in case of a, it should be after the integrator. Why it is before integrator?
Yes, because when you multiply x with a, you get the differential. Okay, you see here, when I multiply, no, it's not a, it should be c. That's what. No, a. Yeah, no, it's correct. If you consider this part only, then what happens? I have x and I supply x with a. What do I get? Dx by dt. Right? So this one is dx by dt. So I start with x, multiply it with a, I get dx by dt. Okay. How do I get dx by dt? By two methods, ax and bu. There should be adder there. Does that?
Sir, can you please make a just recap the multiple input and output, the whole process, just very short. I know
Multiple
that's
input,
very difficult.
multiple input, multiple output. Okay, let's
Yes,
see.
yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so this is the most general expression. No. Yeah. So what will be the most general expression? dx1 by dt equals this whole left hand side and so on. Similarly, the expression for the output variable. So these are all the equations. What do? I convert these equations to a matrix equation. So what would be the matrix equation? This will be my matrix equation, right? dx by dt equals a matrix x vector plus b matrix u vector and so on. Then for a single input, single output system, what do? I take Laplace transform on both sides for a one equation. Now I'm doing it for n plus p equations. So I did this and then again I convert this to a matrix. So there is this got messed up. So again I do it and this is the matrix which I get. Okay. And then I gave name to this matrix S times I matrix. So this is the I matrix. This is the I matrix. This is the A matrix. This is the I matrix. This is the B matrix. So I have given names to this matrix. Similarly, this matrix is named C. This matrix is named D. Right? So now I have two expressions, y of s equals C matrix, X vector, D matrix, U vector, and then I substitute in place of X matrix the expression which I get from here, right? So the overall expression which I get is that the matrix transfer function is this huge expression which ultimately upon solving will give you a matrix. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Any other doubt or question?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, the last part that you taught about the interconversion of transfer domain to state space.
Hmm.
Sir, why, like, what is the use of
Why are we
it?
doing this?
Yeah, yes, sir.
See, the
Yes, sir. I
easiest way to,
also have.
yeah, good. See, the easiest way of understanding any process is to imagine the process as a single input, single output process, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, all the systems cannot be expressed inherently when you do modeling. Say if this were a modeling class, I would have written all sort of model equations. Now that's not what I want. What I want is in a process control that these are my variables which are the input variables which affect my system. These are the variables which are the output system variables which are the representation of my system, right? In between there come the dynamical variables. Now I'm not interested in dynamical variables as such, as at least in transform domain model. We are interested in the behavior of the output variable. So now what I do is I convert my conventional set of equations to an input output system such that you have a single input, you have a single output. There can be an internal mess. That mess can be very simple in case of transform domain modeling. That mess will be really complicated like this in case of state space domain model. But if I have somehow a mathematical or a computational way to deal with this intermediate one, then all I do is, okay, fine, I have an input, I provide my system with this input and I get this output. The mess has to be taken care by computations or mathematics or whatever way you want. Okay, this is the basic idea. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Like after converting into transfer domain, we are like taking the inverse, right?
Yes. So you have taken a path from one state space domain model to other state space domain model via transform domain model.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any more doubt or question? Okay. If not, then we'll take some more interesting cases in the next lecture for one of the tank problems, where we will see how analysis of transfer function becomes really important as well as interesting. Just a reminder that we have the second test scheduled on Sunday starting 9 p.m. Good luck. Thank you.